No, it's not a Bentley. Be prepared to say that a lot if you're considering a Genesis GV80 because, well, this luxury SUV from South Korea clearly draws its inspiration from somewhere in the higher echelons of this environment. But hey, I think that it does have its own part to play and some really interesting features, and maybe some bits that could be better. Stay tuned, I'll tell you all about it in this review. If you've already liked and subscribed, thanks very much. Let's get to it. Genesis has streamlined the model range for the GV80 this time around with this updated version, and that means there's no 2.5 litre petrol turbo anymore, and there's no diesel either, which is a shame. I bloody love that diesel engine. Instead, we're just left with this meager twin turbo petrol V6, which is an absolute cracker, but we'll get to that later. Look, it does come with 3 different versions of the GV80 available. So the entry-level one is the SUV, and it comes as standard with 7 seats, and it's about $130,000 before on-road costs, which represents something like $10,000 more than it used to be. There's heaps of extra equipment that's been added across the range, but it does seem to be, well, still pretty competitive in the luxury SUV segment for a large 7-seater. And there's also a 6-seat version if that's what you prefer. So it gets captain's chairs in the second row to make it a bit more of a premium experience for those backseat riders. You still get those extra 2 seats in the boot though, and it's an SUV as well rather than the coupe. And this one here is the coupe. It's the most expensive version, about $136,000, and it gets a slightly less practical body. I don't know why people pay more for less, but they do. Maybe it's just for the look, and if you like the look, that's totally fine. I'm not so sure that I do, but the coupe version does get a few extra features, or different features, compared to the SUVs. It gets different 22-inch alloy wheels, 22s on the other grades as well. It also gets a flat bottom steering wheel, where the other ones have a round wheel. And there's also some other features on the inside like contrast stitching and contrast seat belts as well, just to name a few of the differentiators for the coupe model. But the standard equipment list across the entire range is extensive. Some of the highlights include full LED lighting all around the car. You get a glass roof in all versions of this vehicle, and there's also the things you would expect like keyless entry and push button start. You've got beautiful leather trim on the inside. There's a few different color interior options as well. There's a 27-inch OLED display in front of the driver that spans across to, well, 2/3 of the dashboard essentially, and that also incorporates your infotainment stuff. But weirdly, no wireless Apple CarPlay. You still have to plug in, which is so strange in such a high-tech looking cabin. And it also has the luxury features that you would expect. Look, I'll tell you a little bit more about them when we get into the car, but just know that it feels like the money that you're paying for it. So what else could you spend your money on? Okay, so if you've got $130,000 and you want a luxury SUV, there are plenty of options out there that you could be looking at. The first one I would recommend you go and have a look at though is the Volkswagen Touareg R. I drove it recently. It's a plug-in hybrid with proper performance credentials. It's ridiculously quick, super duper fun to drive, and also super luxurious on the inside as well. It starts just under $130,000, and while it doesn't have the coupe styling of this car, it does have 5-seat layout with a big boot and plenty of really nice features on the inside as well. So it could be the best alternative to this if you're into the idea of a plug-in hybrid. If not, there's also the R-Line diesel V6 version, which is really good too. Now, if you are looking for something with 7 seats, I would recommend you go and have a look at the Volvo XC90. It is getting a little bit old now, but it does have heaps of space and luxury on its side. And look, there is a plug-in hybrid version if that's what you're into, and if not, there are also a couple of other versions available in that lineup before it goes fully electric at the end of 2024. So if you do want an XC90, I recommend you go and take a look at one quickly. It is a large SUV with plenty of street presence, obviously, but I'm not so sure that I like the look of the coupe model. It is a little bit longer and it does have a slightly lower roofline than the SUV. But to me, the SUV just looks so baller. This one, not as much. All versions come with 22-inch wheels. This being the coupe version, it gets a slightly different wheel design. And obviously at the back, there might be a little price to pay in terms of the boot space available to you. It gets a slightly different rear spoiler and maybe crucially for some people, no rear wiper, which could be really, really annoying. But let's have a look in the boot. See what we're playing with, and you can see for yourself that there is a decent amount of space in this coupe model. I'll put the figure on your screen now so you can see what the number is, and I just want to show you also this cargo cover has a really nice action to it, so you can fold it back out of the way if you want to, and you can also remove it, of course. Now in the boot area, in terms of amenities, you've got a light on this side and a little cargo hook there. You've also got another light and cargo hook on that side, but no shopping bag hooks, which is a little bit strange, but that's just how it is. Maybe people who buy this car don't need to take shopping home with them. So you've got a 12-volt port here. You've also got these little trigger switches for the back seats. So you just press the button and the seats electronically fold down, which to me seems like overkill. I don't know, you tell me. First aid kit down here, and underneath this carpet mat in the boot, you will also find a tyre repair kit. There is no spare wheel in this car, which maybe isn't ideal for everyone, especially considering you're riding on 22-inch rims with low profile tyres. Now, under there, I don't know what's under there, but I'd like to open it. Now, let me put this back down. Of course, these seats also come back up if you press those buttons. And I'm gonna also put the SUV practicality specs on your screen, so the amount of cargo capacity for the SUV model, so you can see for yourself the difference. And it is a little bit of a difference, but personally, I think the difference really comes down to the styling and what you prefer. And personally, like I said, I think I'd go for the SUV one just because I like the look of it more. Talk about upping the ante a little bit. This really does have a different vibe to the model it replaces. And obviously this is the high grade coupe model, which does get the contrast stitching. And there are a few different color combos if orange on grayish green doesn't really suit your tastes. But I really, really like it. I think that it does have so much more character than some of the other vehicles in this segment, which maybe are a bit more sedate in terms of the interior design. But the big talking point obviously is this massive 27-inch OLED display. The whole idea here is that it's a seamless integration between driver info screen and your multimedia system. And I think they've done a really nice job of this. Look, I don't think that it's perfect because you still have to plug your phone in for Apple CarPlay, which to me, when you can do this, why can't you do the wireless thing? It just seems so strange. And even stranger, there is a wireless phone charger in here, which even has a UVC light. So you can press the button and close it up. That'll basically UV clean your phone for you because your phone's grotty. Now, it won't be as grotty. Now, something else that you might find will get a bit grotty is this touch screen here for the climate control settings. So you've got your seat heating and cooling buttons, and also your fan controls are here. It's all on a screen though. So apart from the temperature dials, which are set aside, it's easy to get used to. It's just like, why a screen? Why couldn't it just be buttons? Buttons are good. And there's a dial for your tuning and your volume too. So at least you've got some dials, right? Now, speaking of dials, there's a couple more dials down here, and I criticized, well, every Genesis that come before it, including this one, for having two rotary controllers for two very different things. So this one is for your media screen interaction, and it does this, and this one is your gear selector. And the number of times that I accidentally hit that when I'm trying to go into reverse, there's another dial here, in fact, your drive, terrain and drive mode controller. So you've got drive modes, and you've also got a terrain mode system if you want to go off-roading. I don't think I'd be going too far off the beaten track with these 22s, but hey, everyone's different. Look, in here, you've got a covered center console bin, but it's very small. Like, this is my fist. Look, it only goes up to there, so it's only like that deep. That was a bad illustration. And you've also got the usual sort of things that you get in high-end models from Hyundai and Kia Group. You get this electric adjustment trigger system here, so you can push this seat forward if you want to put someone a bit more comfortably in the back seat. And you've also got decent storage in terms of your cup holders up here with ambient lights. There's cup holders or bottle holders in the doors as well. And it does feel really quite spesh in here. I absolutely love the fact that it doesn't have a dark headliner. It just makes it feel more premium in my opinion. And another thing, you've got a digital camera rear vision system as well. So if you do find that, well, you've got a mirror full of faces in the back, then you can just flick the switch and it gives you a view out over the top of the car. So it's from a camera mounted on the roof of the car, and it means that you don't have to worry about not being able to see out the back window. Right, let's see if the back seat experience is any good. It's the coupe model, so does it have enough space? Well, you can see for yourself. I'm 182 centimeters or 6 foot tall. I've got a fair amount of headroom back here. It doesn't rake down like some of the other coupe style SUVs that make, well, it uncomfortable for someone my size to sit in the back. But look, it does have a decent amount of space here. I've got plenty of leg room, a decent amount of foot room as well. Like I said, headroom's good. You could fit 3 adults across the back if you needed to. There's a small transmission tunnel intrusion, but it's not too bad. And hey, if you want to, you can slide these seats forward. There are electric toggles on the side, so you can squish yourself up and tickle the earlobes of the driver if you want. Don't do that. Okay, so there's also some really nice amenities in the back of this car. Just let me slide back into my position. You've got map pockets on the seat backs. There's also directional air vents here and a climate control system for the back too. So it's 3-zone climate, and you can set the temperature back here. You've got heated and cooled outboard seats as well. And there's also a pair of USB-C ports down here and a 12-volt and bottle holders in the doors and a flip down armrest with some cup holders and a little storage tray as well. So yes, it's all pretty clever, I reckon, when it comes to the cabin storage and solutions and comfort levels in the back. If you need it, because the tint is pretty good, you've got these shades that you can pull up to shade people in the back if you need to. So I like it. It's not impractical at all. There used to be a few different options available for you in the GV80 range, but now just one. It's a 3.5 litre twin turbo petrol V6 engine, and it's got heaps of power and torque. You'll see the numbers on your screen now. It comes as standard with an 8-speed automatic transmission and a rear biased all-wheel drive system, which can send some torque to the front if it needs to, if you need all-wheel drive traction. Now, it's also got pretty decent towing capacity, just over 2,700 kilos for the brake towing capacity, 750 for unbraked. But just keep in mind that the maximum tow ball down weight is a little bit lower than the 10% ratio, which you might be hoping for if you're planning to go towing with this vehicle. And speaking of weights, it's kind of hefty, this thing, and it feels a little bit chunky on the road. So let's go for a drive, see what it's like. There are elements of this drive experience which I like, and there's bits that I'm not as convinced by. So let's talk about the stuff that maybe isn't quite ticking my box. It might tick your box. Sorry if that sounds weird, but I do think that maybe the suspension, even though it has this clever technology with a camera that reads the road ahead, it's pretty good in some situations, though I do find that you can still feel the little lumps and bumps in the road surface at lower speeds in particular if the system doesn't pick up on a bump that's coming up. You've got 22-inch wheels with low profile tires, you feel that bump. In most situations though, it does seem to be okay, but for me it just feels like there's a sort of imbalance between what the front suspension does and what the rear suspension does. The front front seems pretty tied down, and it does aid the steering feel and the responsiveness at the front end when you are changing directions and stuff like that. But the rear, when you go over a bump, it just feels a little bit clumsy, a little bit bouncy and wallowy, and not quite as controlled as an all-wheel drive SUV that weighs more than 2.2 tons probably should feel, in my opinion. And look, you might find that it's not that big of a deal. If you're not the sort of person who goes out for a Sunday drive just for the hell of it, then it could be perfectly fine for you. If you live urban and that's all you really do, hey, yeah, it'll probably be pretty good in most situations for you. But yeah, for me, I just wish that it had a slightly more appealing tune to the way that it's all set up in terms of the suspension and so forth. And it isn't tuned for Australia or anything like that either. So I just want to see if putting it into Sport Plus mode or Sport mode does make a difference to the suspension. It firms things up, there's no doubt about that. And well, yeah, this is one of the things I like, this engine. It's an absolute corker, but it does have slightly more tied down feel to it in one of the Sport Drive modes. But look, I still don't think it's quite as well tuned a car in terms of the chassis and the dynamics of it as something like that Volkswagen Touareg R, which I mentioned earlier on. You'll probably get your kicks out of this engine because it's a twin turbo V6 petrol, and it's like fast. Far out is it fast. This is an absolute weapon of a machine. So I would say it does live up to the performance factor from the engine perspective. Transmission's really clever as well. It holds gears when it should in sport mode or just in one of the normal modes as well. And it also allows you to explore the potential of this powertrain as well. And like I mentioned, it does have all-wheel drive, but it's a rear biased system. So it does feel like it kind of slingshots you out of corners a little bit too. And I don't think that it's a disappointing drive experience. It's just that maybe in the normal driving modes, it might not quite be as tied down as I would like. And that's the key here. It just doesn't quite nail it for me. It might nail it for you. So let's talk about fuel consumption, okay? Because, well, the official combined cycle number is high. You'll see it on your screen now. I mean, it's a twin turbo petrol V6. This car is not light. It's no surprise that it's on the high side, but it certainly makes the existing engines that have been axed, well, missed, I have to say. And there's no EV version and there's no plug-in hybrid version. So it is falling a little bit short in terms of the efficiency factor. And if you're wondering what I've seen in terms of efficiency, you'll see my number on your screen, and that was across a mix of driving, some spirited and a lot of just the normal stuff that you'll probably do as well. And yeah, high as well. It's not an efficient car, I would say. You know what's weird? The GV80 did have a 5-star ANCAP safety rating, but it doesn't anymore because, well, they axed the two versions that came with it. So the diesel had it, the 4-cylinder petrol had it. This V6 petrol didn't have it, and so it doesn't have a 5-star rating officially. Does it matter? I don't think it does, because it's got all the same stuff, including autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist and junction detection. There's lane keeping assistance and adaptive cruise control, which can combine into a traffic jam assist feature, so it can do lane centering and stopping and going for you in traffic jams, which is really, really handy and takes the, I guess, drudgery out of the day-to-day. There's also a blind spot camera system, so it shows up a view of your blind spot on the screen inside. There's rear cross traffic alert as well, a surround view camera system as standard, parking sensors all around the car, and it's also got other elements like safe exit assist and a rear occupant alert too. Now, it's also got plenty of airbags. There's dual front, there's driver's knee, front center, rear side, front side, and full-length curtain coverage. So that's like 8,000 or something like that. Anyway, plenty of airbags. It's pretty safe, I reckon. There's a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty for the Genesis range, and that includes also 5 years of free servicing. Now, the service intervals are every 12 months and 10,000 Ks, so it is a little bit more needy in terms of maintenance requirements, but it's free, so don't complain. Now, there's also 5 years of free roadside assistance included, and if you do service with the Genesis network, that extends out to 10 years as well. And speaking of servicing, there are some perks. If you live within a certain distance from one of the metro cities, they can pick up and return your car for you for free as well. Pretty nice experience by the sound of things. This is an impressive luxury SUV, there is no doubt about it. There are some things that maybe could be better, but I think that for what it is here to offer, an alternative to some of those mainstream brands, it does that, and it does that convincingly. So would you choose one of these? If you were going to pick one, which version would it be? For me, the 7-seat SUV just makes the most sense, but I'd love to know your thoughts. Let me know in the comments section below, and if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.